Now, for next 30 minutes, we'll talk about what is the data management, especially agriculture research data management, and what is open data, and what are the uses, what are the challenges while we work with the open data, and what are the benefits of sharing the research data to different stakeholders. So, I think all of you are working in research projects, and everybody is generating certain kind of data from your projects, or maybe the breeder you develop, you generate certain data, and as a extension officers, extension scientist, you generate certain data for the farmer community, and even pathologist and agronomist, social scientist, soil scientist, everybody, irrespective of the project, they generate the data. But till now, everybody, all the scientists, or at least many of the scientists, they are holding the data and they're sharing the data, but not with everybody. With a request, maybe with a friendship, or maybe with a compulsion, they are sharing the data. But there's not the way of doing the sharing of the data. In the next 30 minutes, we'll discuss about open data and what is data sharing, especially agriculture research data, and what are the barriers to mainstream the data sharing, what are the challenges we are facing in this activity, and what are the global initiatives that we can take an advantage of global initiatives, and we understand what are the things we can practice for our better data management, and CGIAR success stories. We'll see a couple of success stories. I'm not mentioning all the success stories, but I'm focus on specific success stories. And after that, we come to the ICRISAT data management, how we are handling at ICRISAT, how effectively we are handling the research data that is produced at ICRISAT research projects, and what are the open data promotional activities we are doing at ICRISAT, and what are the data repositories we are maintaining at ICRISAT. Can you define, or can you tell what do you understand by data? Can you, any of you can tell us what your understanding of data?
Using number of numeral for something.
As an extension officer?
Collection of information.
Okay. What kind of?
Any related information.
Okay. And what do you mean by open data then? Because everybody is now talking about open data.
That only few people get access to it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got access to play with the data any which way they want.
So any specific characteristics or certain things of that data?
Doesn't change the validity.
Mm-hmm. See, there are a number of definitions, but in general, open data means open to everybody without any restrictions. Okay, that should be interoperable and reused and redistributed. That's free access. That means whatever the data you are producing out of your research activities, that should be freely available to the outside world, to anybody, whoever want it. And that should be reusable, and that should be redistributed. And again, what is the interoperability? Isn't that I have certain data, especially in social science, I go to the farmer field and collect the data, and I'm keeping in my repository in the form of Excel, MS Office Excel. And when I keep it inside, everybody understand the Excel, everybody can work on the Excel, everybody can download if it is openly available, then they can work and reuse and redistribute. Okay, the same way, if I am keeping in ICRISAT repository and some other center is keeping their data in the repository, if there is an understanding or a collaboration in between the two repositories, then they can talk each other, so that one repository they can extract from other repository. So these are all the basic characters of the open data. And some other characteristics we see that should be easy to use. What is the meaning of easy to use? Isn't that Dr. Venkat Rao is producing the data and is he is generating the data, he can store in a way that he can only understand, but some other people cannot understand. Even if we keep that format in the open data repository, even though it is publicly acceptable and accessible, then that won't make any uses. Okay, so that should be easy to understand, easy to use it. And we discussed what is interoperability and machine readable. Okay, you are giving some data, otherwise you dump the data into the repository, which other system cannot understand. Then what is the use? There is of no use, even though for the sake of open access you are keeping, but it not that much useful. And one more important characteristic of open data is, especially for the extension workers, extension scientists, they go to the farmer field and they collect the data along with the personal information. Ideally, personal information should not be revealed to anybody, unless otherwise there is a need and there is a compulsion. So the personal data can be tuned into another way so that nobody can understand. Maybe instead of P. Venkat Rao, that can be XYZ. Then nobody can understand what is XYZ, who is XYZ. That kind of change you can keep and then again put into the open access repository. If you look at the line, bottom line, easy access as well as open access is required to ensure the most effective use of research results. All the scientists, they do the research and they produce the research results. But if you keep, as a scientist, as a researcher, if you keep your data within your desktops, then there is of no use, because most of the research projects are with the public funds. If you are doing your research with a public fund, that should be open to the public. You are not the owner, you are not the authorized people to hold it, because it is, you are doing whatever the research project we are doing with a project that is public fund. Even if you get a government of India funding for your research project, that is from income tax from different people, from the budget. And again, there is slight difference in the open access and open data. In general, open access, people think that open access to the publications, research articles, journals. And open data is a open data, specific to data. That data can be anything, Excel sheet, notepad, videos, anything, any form. Even software code is a open data. Assume that that is your data with respect to IT companies or IT projects. And in recent days, many of the journals, publications, they are asking for the data along with the publications, research articles. Because if you are publishing one research article, you are showing in a beautiful results, then there should be an evidence, so that everybody who is reading and who is looking at the research results, they can go back to the raw data or kind of data that supports to the publication. Otherwise, there is no evidence. Even I can write a beautiful research results, but if I change the every majority of popular journals, they are asking for the raw data that supports to the publications. Especially, you might have heard the Nature, that is the #1 journal, and now they are forcing to attach, to give the link or the data which supports to the article. This is in growing demand from the publishers. And when you talk about the open data, maybe we can discuss, but there should be a force, there should be a support from different people, maybe scientists, maybe the bureaucrats, political leaders, and there should be a leadership and bureaucratic support, so that there is a compulsion on the scientific community to share the data. Sometimes we need to force the people in different dynamics. And even the open data, we can provide a platform, a repository to publish the data as an open data. But without data sets, I can give you an empty box. If you fill it, then that's going to be the useful. If you don't fill anything, that is an empty box without any use. The same way, we need to see when we provide, when we talk about the open data, there should be some standards. Then everybody can understand based on the standards. We need to follow some certain standards, and we need to attach or tag with certain metadata so that people can understand what your data is. In one of the data sets, what I found is we got a beautiful data set with a farmer data specific to one project. I have gone through the data. There is a column called age, the attribute age. I've seen the entire data. People, the data entry operator, one value I found 1947, one value ABZ. Somewhere we are getting the numeric figure, text, everything they are keeping under age. That should not be the way. That should be numeric, means numeric. 1947, even though there is numeric, but doesn't make any sense. What should I interpret? The date of age or real age? There is no meaning of 1947. Even one column is education. The data entry field or otherwise the data generator, they entered as DEGREE, degree. What do you mean by degree? Is it 10 plus 2 plus 3? Or what is the degree? Is it BSc or BCom, whatever it is? Even some people are writing 0. Somebody is writing 1950. What do you mean by that? 1950 is a years of years, or maybe date of completion of their degree. So certain things need to be curated, and you need to make sure that data is in a standard format. And even the data should be with metadata. The metadata means who is the data generator, what the season, for what purpose, for what project. A lot of metadata has to be tagged with the data, otherwise they are of no use, even though you put in the open access repository. And capacity building, that is more important. We got the policies, everybody knows, but the scientists who are the real force to make this open data is a success movement, the scientist community. So they have to understand the value of the open data and data sharing. Otherwise, they don't support in a bigger way. Without their help, nobody can do anything. Even though there is a force, there is no policy making. Nothing will happen. As we discussed earlier, many of the research projects are using public fund. Even ICRISAT, we do the project research with public fund, the different countries, different agencies. Then what is the advantage of sharing your data? Can you tell me in your experience what the what the uses and what the advantage you get when you share your data? Dr. Patro, you can
reduce the review.
Okay.
You can save time. Same research is done in some other place.
And again, the last but not least, leads to new collaboration partnership. I requested Dr. Patra for climate data of his area. For the research work what I am doing. So in future, I may collaborate my research project with him based on this interaction and data sharing. There is a chance. Even, as you mentioned, avoiding the replication of the same research work again and again. If I know what is the climate, what the climate data, I no need to go to that particular place to collect the data again and again, which is time consuming and which is cost involvement. But there are few issues. What are the data that should not go with the commercial component? If there is any thing which we can share with the commercial companies with the commercial component, that is a different story. But while we talk about the data sharing, there are certain challenges, there are certain barriers to mainstream the data sharing. These are all 4 main points which I feel there are a lot of things which makes the data sharing is a complex way. data confidentiality. As we discussed, the personal information should not be with the data. And data standards, relation with the interdisciplinary data. You are generating one data set with one location with the same objective, and again he is generating his data, but there should be a kind of integration. Then you both of your data can be integrated and put into the repository so that everybody can use in one go of your both data. If your data is separate and his data is separate, there is no integration, then there is a less usage. And curation is more important. You are collecting the data, you are generating the data, but if you are not concentrating more on the curation, as I said, the years 1947, 55 something. So what the parameter I need to take to judge the age of 1947? So that curation part has to be done before it reaches to the data repository. Otherwise, somebody access your data which they find that there are some errors or major errors, then your validity will go down. Even though you share your data, there is enough noise and no and recognition and data authorship. What if you share your data with the global community? What is the recognition you get out of your effort of data sharing with, apart from your regular research work? You are busy with your regular research work. When you think about the open data, you need to put more effort in terms of the data curation, in terms of the metadata standards, in terms of other things that may consume your valuable time out of your research activity. Then what is the advantage, recognition you get? Recognition may be in terms of appraisals, hikes, salary hikes. Apart from that, if you get more citations to your publications or your open data repository data sets, your name will be highlighted. Even your institute get more recognition. That means you are in the open data movement. Even the data authorship. If you look at the data collection data chain, so somebody is collecting the data from the ground, he is giving to somebody, then he is converting to digital form from the paper form, and it reaches to some other scientist, and that goes to the, there is a hierarchy. In this flow, who is the owner, who is the author? If you take an example of ICRISAT, whatever the data produced out of the ICRISAT research project, ICRISAT as a whole is the owner of the data, but not the scientist who really working. Maybe they are the data authors, data generators, but real data, ICRISAT as an institute, ICRISAT is the owner. The similar way, your organization is the data owner, but not the scientist. And again, one more important is data preservation beyond project life cycle. Isn't that you are getting fund for 2 years, you are getting beautiful data, and that is more important. After the end of the second year, who will take care of your data? Even though that is more valuable, that has to be stored, but you don't have any funds to, you don't have any plans to store your data further, because we need to plan before we start our project how to handle, to preserve beyond the project life cycle, which is of more important. And these are all challenges, these are all the overall picture of open data and data sharing. Recognizing the importance of the open data, there are a lot of initiatives, global initiatives with respect to open agriculture research data. There are few organizations who already have been doing the open data in a bigger way. And recently, G8 collaboration of US and the UK open data, GODAN. Now it is focusing more on agriculture and nutrition. And government, USA and UK government, they are opening their data, and these are the website for your reference. after you go back to your respective places, maybe you can browse and get more knowledge and what the platforms they are doing, giving for the data sharing, and what the type of data they are sharing, and then maybe for your research project this may be useful. And these are all few data initiative that CGIAR is initiating. You can find a lot more, but these are all the few things. Out of which our VDSA is one of the main data warehouse or open data repository. Then coming to ICRISAT, what we are doing and what is our strategy to handle for effective data management. If you look at this slide, this diagram, left side there are CRPs. These are all the research projects in a bigger way. At the high level, we are getting the data, and we do all the analysis, and finally we need to provide a kind of data which they can use for their further analysis. Maybe the end user, maybe the policymaker, maybe the researcher, maybe the student, maybe the scientist. And if you look at different domains of agriculture research, there may be a social science, maybe a genetics, breeding, soil science, pathology. There are in different subject areas. We cannot force any of the area to follow this. They have their different needs. Breeding has different needs. The data formats are different. Standards are different. That we cannot integrate with the social science data. Social science data or farmers data specifically with a different component, questionnaire. Questions are different. So each subject area, each project, each program area has a different needs of the data management. So we have a decentralized data management platforms. Like for VDSA, social science we have VDSA. For breeding we have different thing. So we have different platforms for different projects, and we keep it in a central data repository so that this kind of one-stop shop for all the data needs. You have beautiful, if you have good data, even ICRISAT has 43 years of research data. Some of them are digital, some of them in hard copies, so we need to handle everything. But we need a system availability where the data can be deposited after curation for the data sharing. And we need to establish a process. If you directly go to the scientist and request for the data that can be accessible through these platforms, there is a kind of process we need to follow. So even we cannot directly take the data from the scientist because of the quality. We need to check before we place into the data repository. It has to go through a certain process. In a typical example, the scientific data coming out of the research scientist or data generator, it has to go to through the statistician so that he can check the quality. If we satisfy, then it comes to the data management unit. Then we facilitate them with their data to be in a data repository. Even culture change. Everybody knows the importance of the data sharing, but they have to understand more about data sharing, what the benefit they get out of the data sharing. For all these, we are closely working with the consortium office, CGIAR consortium office, to better understand what other centers are doing. So we cannot alone develop all the platforms, all the solutions for different data needs. We need to go for the partnership mode. We need to see what the best practices other centers are, maybe your centers are following. We need to see what the best we can take out of their efforts. There are different needs of data management. Why do we need? We need to keep in a central data repository. That is the main motto or main purpose. Apart from that, we need to take a backup as a long run. because scientists they have their own data recovery backup mechanism. But what if that get failed? Even what if that computer or laptop corrupted and crashed? Even at institute level, we need to see how best we can see backup and archiving the data sets. And we need to keep the data in a secured way. Nobody can hack it or nobody can disturb it. Of course, we need to provide the data sharing platforms. And again, right now, the IT world having different standards and certain data can, many of the data sets, most of the scientists, they keep their data in Excel form, many of the scientists, because everybody is familiar with the Excel. But we need to keep the data in a different format for the future needs. Maybe the technology changing, and maybe in future if there is a new technology, then we need to think about the new technology and we need to think about the standard that our data format can understand in a future technology. Of course, data quality assurance. There should be a mechanism in your organization or any of the process flow. We need to keep the data quality. Without data quality, data check, we need to ensure the quality before it make the data open. And of course, for all these efforts, the leadership decision is very, very important. This is a typical way of flow. We get the data from different research projects and specific to research object, and it comes to the central data repository after the curation. Okay, this is the table with respect to CGIAR centers. With efforts, we are all in a good shape, especially as mentioned by Dr. Dilip in the morning session. With less effort, we are in a good shape, and few of the centers, they're still working on certain activities, especially with the data management. We have the policy at ICRISAT, and of course many of the centers they're having, and we have a separate data management unit to handle the research data management, research data. And still certain centers are in progress. And we have the GS unit, and we have the biometric unit. In our ICRISAT, the biometric unit handles the quality check. They are the statistician. These people are, facilitating the quality check for all the research data. Once they approve, then it comes to the data repository. So they are the quality check. They are the main people here. And of course, we are the central data archiving and sharing platforms. We have different platforms. Just we will see, what are the platforms we have. And these are all the different promotional activities we are working at ICRISAT. So last year, October 24th, we managed Open Access Week, and we are having the policy now, and we are conducting capacity buildings. And we have different data repositories, OER, database, VDSA, aware platforms, Agrobase, a lot of things. Tomorrow we'll see the database, how to set up, how to install, and how to establish data repository in a simplest way. Maybe that is useful to establish that kind of platforms, what we are having at ICRISAT into your organization. This is the snapshot of the database what we have. This is the institutional data repository we have, and these are all different data sharing platforms what we are working with. And next two sessions we have the session on VDSA. They'll explain what exactly the VDSA is, and Dr. Raji will explain about the breeding data management in next session. And we are working on tablet based, Android based mobile data collection that helps to the breeders, that helps to the extensions, the scientists to have a better data capture mechanism, so that the efforts of the data curation will be minimized. When we collect from that paper-based collection, somebody read that, they understand in a different way, and they convert into digital form. There may be a mistakes like 1947 and 50. There is yes. something like that. With the using this technology or a mobile-based data collection tool, we can avoid such kind of mistakes or errors. And for that, we are using the open source tool, the ODK toolkit. Even you can use it, freely available, open source. Even you want to, without spending anything, you can set up your mobile-based data collection system. Thank you. Any questions? Please.
Like government of USA and UK, does government of India has any policy decision on sharing the data between government institutions?
What is your question, Dr. Shanti?
Is there any policy level decisions that data can be shared among institutions at government level? Is there any policy?
Among the institutions?
Yeah.
It's a very, very difficult question, and probably we may need to take some days to answer that one. So let me explain you. See, I'm sure like Chukka might have given an overview about these data sharing scenarios. And earlier when they started unlocking the potential of the knowledge and information resources, it's all started with the publications. And the publications only, they started bringing up that one, like how do we need to open this one. Of late, most of the institutions, especially the funding agencies and the donors, they are insisting to share the data sets also. The way it can combine the publications with the data sets, and they are bringing that one. If you have a table in your paper, you need to share the data sets also. The few open access journal already initiated that one because there is a pressure from these donor agencies and the funding agencies. Okay, that allowed people to look into these initiatives, what we need to. Did you cover this open data initiative from the World Bank?
Yes, I shared the screen.
Okay, so that's where the people from especially the Commonwealth nations, and they come together, and also the G8 members, and they have organized a program that's an open data in agriculture. That's a brainstorming session. Okay, how do we need to share these validated data sets? Okay. And even at an ICR level, when we talk about that one, very, very recently, we have agreed to follow the open access guidelines. It's a big success, okay? When we say the open access guidelines, that comes various resources. Whichever we see the IPGs, international public goods, then we need to share them. But again, the challenge is, it's up to the scientist and up to the researcher, whether they would like to share that one or not. That's where you are going to see the institutional level policy and implementation guidelines, what we need to have in place. Sometimes it may be an incentive that encourages you to share your data sets. And in other way, it may be a stick. Hey, if you don't share your data sets, you are going to be in trouble. That's at an institutional level guidelines. So far what is happening, there are guidelines, and even at certain institutes at the global level. At the same time, there are guidelines at the institutional levels also. Okay, though they have the guidelines at institutional levels, even at ICRISAT also, though we have the guidelines, it's up to the scientist. Okay, and even we make those interventions to ensure they can share these data sets. Okay, but most of them, they are not sharing. It's a difficult task, and we are learning. It's almost like a baby steps we are taking, especially in the area of agriculture. Because there are two reasons why they are not sharing these data sets, though this is in place, because I mentioned like what it covers, and even in our open access policy, we clearly mention the guidelines how to share the data sets. It's not only limits to us, even to our partners also. If you are part of our project, you need to follow these guidelines, okay? But if your institute says, if you don't have the guidelines, you need to follow those guidelines also. This is where we are seeing how this is going to work out. So in a simple way, we can't say it's like global standards, very well accepted and adapted practices existed now. We may not be able to say that one. But the efforts are taken, and we are taking baby steps towards that direction. Unless and until we bring the changes in the scientific community, it's not going to be a success. Because let me share with you, even in our program areas, these are the fellow scientists, and one person already carried this research, and the other person somehow aware of that one, and he wanted those data sets rather than repeating the same research activity. But this person doesn't want to share these data sets because the apprehensions are sometimes that may be a wrong data. They may figure out the mistakes in their data sets. That's one reason. And the other reason is, I have done this work. Why do I need to share this one? So now that's where we are following these Creative Commons and how we can give the ownership. We are bringing these things also. We are all learning together. There are guidelines at global level, national level, institutional level. But we are following or not, how best we can bring these behavioral changes, that's an important thing. I'm sure like Chukka can cover more. Chris, would you like to add to that one?
So there's the carrot and the stick, right? So part of the carrot, maybe a model for the carrot besides, how do you get it enculturated? How do you reward people for sharing? A model might be what's going on in the U.S. with open health data. So if you look at, for the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a health data palooza sponsored by the government. So, what do you do with open government health data? And they open it up to entrepreneurs and IT professionals to build applications and to create new solutions with that health data. The group that's been coordinating that for the last couple of years just created a nonprofit organization called the Health Data Consortium. You can look up on their website. And it's now headed by the guy that started Innocentive, which was the first kind of external R&D place. That's where Netflix went to get their logarithm, and companies can go and commission innovations outside of their walls. It's a different way to get innovation. So he left his startup Innocentive, and it's all established, and now he's heading up this health data consortium. I think it could be an interesting model for agriculture.
But anything on agriculture, Chris?
I think it should be a great model for, you guys should do it. You should do it right here, right? The DG set out the vision for doing it here in Hyderabad.
The only challenging part, Chris, like even that's not only...
There's only one challenging part?
The only challenge in agriculture is, unlike data, it's not a codified knowledge. In medicine, that's a codified knowledge. That may be a human body, or that may be an animal body, or whatever that may be. We can codify that one, and 2 + 2 is 4. But in the case of agriculture, we work in these abiotic factors, different conditions also. There are some apprehensions. There is no codified knowledge. There are lots of apprehensions to open up this data. That's the biggest challenge. At the same time, mindset. Those codified knowledge areas can quickly bring the changes or adaptations. That's why, like anything which we initiate in agriculture, that's a little slow, and we need to figure out those early adapters who can showcase these models. Even in US, I'm not sure whether the only thing, IFPRI now they are advocating, bringing these papers together with the data sets. That's where the data was. Even here, the VDSA, we are bringing that, I'm sure like Anupama is here, she can share the challenges like what we are facing or undergoing to bring the data sets, even part of that project, not the other data sets from the other institutions. That's the only biggest challenge in agriculture. Even the vocabulary, if you can look at that one, the only initiative that for the data dictionaries, AgroWalk, even at what stage it is. But health, very good data dictionary is there. For the microfinance or the finance, very good data dictionary is there. When we build up this platform, we have developed our own data dictionary. And some extent we have followed this AgroWalk. So all these are baby steps. Unless and until we have that one, we may not be able to see that kind of common platform. So somewhere that should start. Why not we should start? Okay. Hope some extent.
We can recommend it to the policymakers.
It's there in place.
That it should be shared.
It's there in place, Dr. Shanti. Like even there are timelines. The guidelines, how this says, like in the case of ourselves, what we are saying, once you are done with your research, your data, what is the timeline before 2 years? 24 months. Within 24 months, you need to open up this knowledge, whether you publish your article or not. That's an institutional mandatory. It's the same case for all the CGIAR centers, okay? But you need to follow that one, Okay, then we need to enforce that one. It's just this year or last year, and we are organizing these awareness sessions also. ICR, they have their own set of rules. Because all these organizations, you might have seen like ICR open access guidelines very recently. And even at other global initiatives, they have these things. But how many of us sharing our papers on open access platform? And there are
the mindset is not open
Yes.
among the agriculture workers.
Yes.
Scientific community is not open up. That is the problem.
That's where there are two routes. I'm not sure you shared or not. One is the green route and the other one is the gold route. Okay, the green route is those people we are allowing them to share on their own. And the gold route is, so we are enforcing, we are reaching out to everybody, and I'm not sure, I need to figure out that one. But these are the two routes. We will provide you the much information on that one.